Welcome to the Build Up Podcast. I'm your host, Priscilla Facey. We are talking to inspiring entrepreneurs about their financial past, present, and future. We're talking to people who were exactly where you are today. Today we are talking to Sophie Brussaux, a very talented artist who is paving the way and really pioneering a new way of intersecting art and business, and a new platform coming out about NFTs. What are NFTs? Let's kind of dissect this in a basic, easily digestible way.
So NFTs stand for non-fungible tokens, and mostly what it means, because I'm not a tech expert, but mostly what it means, it's a really authentic and new way for artists to take control of their finances, of their career, and make some money.
Make some money off selling their art in a digital format.
Absolutely, in a digital format. But then you can also choose, for example, whenever you auction off an NFT, you can choose to attach a physical experience to it. So let's say, I don't know, tomorrow I sell my painting and someone buys the top tier NFT, there can be an in-person meeting, which obviously is not COVID friendly, but you know, just you can do whatever you want. You know, you have to get creative with it.
And I think this is something that's so important, and I think the artist community is really going to benefit from this, because this is a way, I think one of the first steps in having art be an actual lucrative career, because it's got to be one of the industries where the work itself is really undervalued, which is funny and ironic, because in the pandemic, especially in serious lockdown mode, everyone was living off art. You were thriving off of it. You had, whether it was DJs doing live shows on, Instagram Live or Twitch, or whether it was people doing, kind of like what you do, live paintings, like fast forward it, but you can actually see and experience art in different ways. And that really kind of kept us all afloat emotionally.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, even trying to buy painting supplies during the pandemic, everything was sold out. So, I think everybody just got a big check on mental health and what it truly means, to be happy, and what you want to do with your limited time on this planet, right? So I agree that, NFTs actually have been around for quite a few years, but it was mostly for the crypto community. And now it's also a really cool opportunity, because graphic designers and, there's all those technological or artistic disciplines that have been, kind of looked down upon, where, galleries would, prestigious galleries wouldn't necessarily exhibit like a graphic artist, or, anybody doing anything digitally. So now they're selling their works for millions of dollars. And, I think that's amazing and empowering. And also, it's quite easy on NFTs for artists to collaborate, and then every time the NFT is being resold, then they get a royalty off of it, depending on how much they decided whenever they created the blockchain.
So the money is going back to the artist directly.
Yes. So it's, even if it's, just 1%, then that means that every time that your work is being, sold over and over, and it will be on a public ledger. So imagine if, Monet had been selling his works through NFTs. Maybe at the time it was worth just a meal for him, to get by. But nowadays, imagine how much he would be making of reselling this work. And there's been, so many issues with artworks being stolen and then resurfacing in another part of the world, and then actually countries trying to reclaim the artwork. So it's, it totally erases that issue, because it's on a public ledger. Anybody with the code of the NFT can just go and consult and see, when it was created, how many copies, when it was sold, and who it was sold to. And the transactions, all the transactions are being encrypted on the blockchain, and everybody can consult them. So it definitely changes.
Yeah, and I mean, this is such phenomenal work that you're doing, and it's really a way that artists and artistry is now having a positive
Yes.
social impact, and I think
Yes.
that was ultimately your goal.
Absolutely, but I also think that NFTs have, and that, you know, they're really great for artists, and I think that, you know, even further than that, anybody, even if you're not an artist, can actually just see what someone else is collecting. Because think about it, nowadays you see, you know, let's say, you know, an older art collector would be having, you know, Picasso's in his safe, and it's an art investment, but also, you know, bragging rights, like, you know, telling you he's not touching it, he's not feeling it, he's not smelling it, he's not tasting it, you know, like the physical experience, maybe he's looking at it on his walls, or maybe it's actually in his safe, but he knows he has this Picasso. Even it's not necessarily a tangible physical experience. It's actually something already just in his head, and just even socially, he has the bragging rights of saying, you know, like I'm part of the upper class. I own a Picasso. So I think that with NFTs, because people are complaining and saying, oh, what am I going to do with digital art?
Sure.
I want art that I can touch. Realistically speaking, how many times are you touching your painting? Or, you know, it's a lot of it is the bragging rights, or even just how you identify, even just the way you dress, for example, is the way you show up in society, and what group you belong to. You know, are you more, you know, of a hippie? Are you more rock? You know, it's the way it's your identity, how you show up, and how you would like people to perceive you. And I think that with art, it's kind of also the same thing. There's an aspect of it where people own art and buy art because it represents who they are, what they stand for, their core values. And with NFTs, I think, you know, if there's almost this open wallet type of thing, then there's a social application to it. Because think about it, tomorrow you meet someone, you want to see what that person is about, and you search them on Google, on Instagram, and, you know, you see, oh wow, he took a picture next to a Lamborghini, like, yeah, you know, he owns that Lamborghini, oh wow, you know, well, truth of the matter is he was walking down the street, he took a picture next to it, and, you know, there's no way to prove. And I mean, even just, you know, people are getting fatigued of this social media, like where there's no authenticity, you know, where you have your digital self is so different from your physical self. So I think that NFTs are bringing authenticity to the digital world. And there is a social application where, you know, people could be saying, well, let me go check that person, and I go check out their open wallet, and I see that he's collecting, you know, those NFTs, and he's into mangas, and he's into, you know, just ecological initiatives. There is no way, you know, you can't filter it. You can't alter the blockchain. It is how it is.
Interesting.
And yeah, I think, you know, as of right now, we're seeing it's a huge opportunity for artists to be able to, you know, remove the middleman a little bit, and, you know, because the NFTs still have to be minted. They still have to be developed. So it's not like tomorrow the artist is going to encrypt the NFT, and, you know, there's still like a very complicated math problem to solve. And there's also, you know, those concerns too about sustainability, because I mean, Bitcoins and Ethereums are very polluting, very energy consuming.
The carbon footprint is
Yes,
massive.
it's huge. So there are, you know, new, more ecological platforms that are coming out, and I think that's also what artists, you know, care about, because it's great to create a new opportunity, a new digital opportunity, and to open the door to a brand new world, and, you know, brand new ways of having impact. But if in the meantime you're, you know, just making things worse, environmentally speaking, then it's not even worth it. I know, you know, a lot of artists that I talk to are telling me, I'm actually getting a bunch of Zoom calls this week, but artists telling me, oh wow, I just heard about environmentally friendly NFTs. How does that work? And, you know, I think everybody wants to be very mindful and conscious of their carbon footprint.
No, I mean, overall, the work you're doing, it's so important, because I think that if artists are actually elevated to a position where, they have freedom to focus on art in a way that, makes sense for them, that is sustainable.
That makes sense for them and also for society, because
Yeah.
I think this is really what artists are about, right? And this is where art truly comes from, when it's an introspective journey. It's not, it has nothing to do really with just outside stuff, people telling you to do this and telling you to do that. It's just, something you tap into that's inside of you. And, deep down, we all want to do good. I like to think so. So, it's after that we tend to just become selfish and be like, oh, okay, well, never mind this and never mind that. All that counts as for me. But I think that deep down, all artists, just take a second to just take a look and say, this is wrong, or this shouldn't be happening. So there's, a way of just building this. It's not that brand new, again, like I said, it's been around for quite a few years, but, artists are getting involved, and it's becoming sustainable, I think. And also, artists, I think that there's not a lot of knowledge about NFTs and how you can make them. And I'm not even talking about the tech side of things, because the moment we acknowledge the fact that it's not artists that will be minting the NFT, yes. As long as there's, transparency, again, on the impact of on the environment, then, we can let, the tech people just do those things, and we can focus
again,
on...
going back to the team.
Yes, exactly, absolutely. Just going back to teamwork. But it's also, lots of questions where, you don't necessarily know what does it take, how many pixels do I need, and if I want to take pictures of my work, what's the resolution that's needed to make a really good quality NFT. I mean, I'm going through the process right now where I'm sending the heaviest files, and they were telling me, okay, like as of right now, you could be projecting on this building right there, and it would come out crispy clear, but the file is super heavy, and this means that, for example, that would be more computing power to actually make the NFT. So I think, it's also about educating people on how to do it,
sure.
What is needed on your end to make sure that you make, a really kick-ass NFT.
When you really look at an artist and what they're looking to put out, they're so close to it. And I think because of that, it almost puts up, a separation, a divider. They may not be able to see the worth. And not everyone's a marketer, and you've said it, right? And I think in any business where there's something to be sold, a product, a service, you really need a team and people to have
Absolutely.
Experts
Absolutely.
that are good at what they do. The marketing person does marketing.
Yep.
The artist doesn't go out and pitch and go door to door and sell
Yes.
it and determine the price. They're too close to it.
Yep.
And you need someone who's got a little bit of that business savviness,
Yes.
the market research ability. All
Yes.
of those things really go
Or
into
that,
it.
or even just someone that wouldn't be offended if the price is being bartered with, or because as an artist, if someone's just asking for the price and you give the price, and then people just say, oh, it's a little expensive, then as an artist you're kind of like, oh, well, don't ask then.
No, and that's the thing too. And I mean, I know we talked a little bit about your work and your teaching work and the sort of intersectionality between art and business.
Yes.
And I think there was a module on it, even in a course you took or taught.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it was mostly the intersectionality of art and ethics, and the intersectionality of art and tech. I'm by no means a tech expert, but I think honestly, like, those two really work together, because tech is, the way to amplify artists' works. Mm-hmm. So we have to be very mindful of the way technology is being used, and artists also really have to, ask themselves about all the biases that we have in our current society, and just, especially the unconscious biases, the ones that you don't necessarily realize, but then when you look around and you see that certain parts of society are just singled out and marginalized, then obviously this is not a fair and equitable world and a fair and equitable society. Then artists, have the power. They truly do. And that's what I mean by, I think, that the powers in place don't necessarily want to encourage artists to give them power and economic power to be fully integrated within society. But artists have that power to really make people think. And from the earliest age on, because, you and I mean, I don't know what age you are, but how old you are, but I assume we're probably from about the same generation. And we saw things during our childhood, that we didn't think twice about maybe when we were younger. But now when we look at them, we're like, oh, wow, really?
It's the subconscious messaging
Yes.
that really goes into it. And, we chatted a little bit about Disney movies,
Yes.
right? And that disclaimer that's almost coming up on the screen now,
Yes.
that, we recognize that the movie that you're about to see was made at a different time and place, and people are represented differently, rather than...
And that it's not okay.
Yeah, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Rather than change the script, we're showing it to you with this
Yes.
message, and these were things growing up that I saw and were very normalized. I mean, and in all different aspects of art, and Harmonia Rosales is one of those
Yes.
artists who's just really rewriting
Yes.
classic paintings.
Yes,
with,
absolutely. Yes, she took pretty much, she said it herself, like she took old white men, and old masters' work, and she turned them into black women. And because, when we talked, she was telling me that, she has, children, and she wants them, to see something different. So, representation matters, and artists have a really big role to play in there to really help, I think, just, repair a little bit this broken society.
No, for sure. And I mean, it's also really changes things for me as a woman, as a woman and a mother. And
Yes.
I had children a little bit later. So my kids are 4 and 6. And, the way I saw the world prior to having children is dramatically different than how I'm seeing it now. And there's really
Yes.
a lot of concern that comes out. And so I make conscious effort to have the bookshelf filled with books of that represent them, so that they can see themselves in these heroic stories and all
Yes.
of that. And I know that you mentioned that on your website, becoming a mother has really shifted and opened up your mind and heart in ways that, weren't there before.
Oh man, I'm Sophie 2.0. Absolutely, yeah. I think, the moment that I was growing life inside my belly, it was the moment that I just really took a look around this world and say, oh wow, it's a really crappy place. And I mean, it could be worse, but it could be definitely better. And what can I do, to try to leave him, a more acceptable legacy? And I'm not an engineer, not really good at, building rockets and finding another planet. So is there anything, that I can, is there anything that can be done on my scale? And it just became, this mission of just trying to, because that's when I really realized that artists were kind of cut off from the rest of society. But it's also because artists are just asking those questions that nobody else really would ask. And I also think that there's a neutrality, ironically enough. We trust artists because we know artists, will say their vision of things, and maybe will ask questions, almost like a third party mediating.
Authenticity.
Yes,
is really
exactly.
important
Thank
and
you.
true to
Yes,
artists.
absolutely. So there's really this power, but artists don't have the capacity to help change society in a very subtle way, but very needed way, because they're singled out. Their primary needs can barely be met, so they have to worry about bartending and just doing those things to pay the bills. But if they truly had, if they were able to thrive doing what they do, having the proper system in place, because that's also the thing with artists most of the time, is they need a really proper system so they can be free to artistically create. I see just, the past 3 years when I, was working in this art organization, and I was developing educational programming, mostly for artists to, take back their power. It was taking all of my creative juices.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it does. And
It does.
Even there's so many, singers who talk about, when I got into the music industry and the business of the music business, it killed my soul, and I'm out now.
It's not even, I'm very proud of everything that was done during those years. I really do hope that it's been helping artists. I've had the opportunity to really talk to a whole lot of artists, and sometimes all they need is just, little tips, just how to market yourself and how to, talk to corporations, and actually even tell them, like, it's okay to be taking some money. It doesn't mean you're a sellout. Yeah. You're not selling your soul to the devil. And if anything, if you want to change things within society, you probably should, look after yourself so you can, look after the rest of the world after.
Yeah, and if you're not feeding yourself, if your bills are not paid, what crumbs can you give left emotionally?
I agree.
And so that's just something
even
that's so
critical. Even physically speaking, if you can't put a roof over your head, then what can you do for the rest of the world? So take care of yourself. I think that's something that we're always telling moms, right? Yeah. Take care of yourself.
Self-care.
So
Finally,
you can be.
I'm glad to be a mom in this era.
Yes, I agree. Amen.
So I think we touched on earlier a little bit about the experience of, raising children in this world, this era, this post, Black Lives Matter, what I like to positively look at as an awakening of the world. And I know you spoke a little bit about your more privileged background and then moving to the US, and you kind of got a little bit of this is what happens here.
Yeah, I grew up, fully privileged and didn't necessarily realize, what was happening until I moved to the States, and I was 20 something, and I was living in New York, and definitely a big awakening and, eye opener. I think that lots of things that are happening are probably because there's a lot of ignorance, and because we're being fed, by mainstream media and, even on the internet, honestly. The internet is a blessing and a curse, because it can become so engrossing and so entertaining that, you'll end up just watching another family's daily life instead of just, educating yourself. And so there's almost this voyeurism temptation. I think, we can all get down that road and just kind of like, sometimes, you're tired after work and you're just scrolling on Instagram, checking, what's happening, what's the gossip,
and then you look at your screen time, if you look at it at the end of the day, and it's like, wow, I spent 4 hours of just watching someone get a coffee, watching someone eat.
So then all of a sudden you don't have any more brain juice to educate yourself, to, do something that requires, a little bit of brain power and just, for your soul to be connected and your heart to be connected a little bit. So, I think that there's totally, this other side of things, but a lot of it, I think, stems from ignorance, lack of communication, because sometimes you don't realize until you have a conversation from, someone that's in a whole other situation. You can't start emphasizing empathy. How do you
having empathy?
Okay, so you can't start having full empathy for someone until you talk to that person, until you see it with your own eyes. And that's when, you start shifting your point of view, and you're like, oh wow, from my point of view it looks like this, but from that point of view it looks like, sometimes that's all that's missing. And I think that even actually going back to technology and just all those algorithms that are making choices for us, there's so much bias and technology that is so harmful to society. And you know why? Mostly is because all people were not invited to the conversation, because you have those people creating those algorithms. Their job is to create algorithms. They're not here to think about all the moral and societal implications that go with their decisions. They're here to develop the technical part of it.
And that's where diversity of thought is important, and having diverse minds and perspectives from the beginning in any company, any industry is so important. I was talking to someone a few weeks ago about Uber and the self-driving vehicles. And they kept hitting people of color, and they kept hitting strollers because they weren't recognizing that this is an actual person, because there was no diversity from the beginning.
Yes, exactly.
In the developing phases.
I mean, let's be completely honest. It's just, I don't know if you've seen that show on Netflix, The Social Dilemma.
I saw it,
When they say, it's pretty much 50 white dudes just making up the whole world. How do you want to have diversity when the inception of the technology doesn't have diversity? So this is, again, why I think it's so important to give power back to the artists, because artists will question those things. Artists, will have a very different look at the world, and we'll be seeing things from very different angles, very different perspectives, and this will keep us in check.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This has been an awesome conversation. I'm so in awe of you and the work you're doing.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and an honor being here.
It's been great, and I'm eyeing your third eye.
Oh, thank you.
This has been another phenomenal episode of the Build Up Podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and you can follow us on Instagram at BuildUpDevCo. You can find this podcast on all platforms where podcasts are available. You can also follow us on Instagram at BuildUpDevCo. Click like and subscribe and leave a review. See you next time.